Hello, and welcome to the Poison Paint Factory. My factory designated name is Poison226. Nice to meet you. Welcome, children of the night. What music they make. So, like I always do, I'm going to undercoat the model in white. And it's really not working this time. Look at that, it's just going everywhere. And I've got no idea what's going wrong, so let's take it up a notch. Boom, dry brush. Now, I wouldn't recommend using a dry brush to base a model, but in this case it worked. I don't know whether it's the plastic that was extra slick, because it's a certain type of plastic, I'm not really sure, but I did give it a clean before, so it's definitely not releasing fluids that have been left over. As you can see, it's going on a lot better now, nowhere near as runny, but it does have a little bit of a texture to it, which it doesn't matter for this model, but just bear it in mind, that's all I'd say. I had so much fun doing the Barbara and Johnny video, subtle plug. Dracula! I hardly knew her. Sorry about that, I don't know what's going on today. I had so much fun doing the Barbara and Johnny black and white video, or the pseudo black and white. I thought I'd do the same thing with Dracula, with him being a universal property and it being black and white, kind of made sense. So I'm using a lot of the tips and tricks I learned from the last video, if you want to watch that one. Second plug. Instead of using actual white, we're going to use the off-white colour for the white of his jacket, and then we're going for this Eclipse grey, which is pretty much like a standard dark grey. It's not got the blue tones, it's not like super brown, it's not really anything, it's just grey, but it works perfectly for what I want, which is a proper black looking trousers and jacket. And obviously the back of the cape. And once again, I don't know what I was doing. I must have watered down the paint way too much for this, because it's just going and going and going. So would not recommend thin paints, but not this thin. I think it took me about 5 layers of this consistency to actually make it opaque, but as you can see, it turned out okay. So everyone knows Dracula has a brown cape, right? We're going to paint it brown. I mean, this was just trying to make the red stand out more later on. I figured that if you use pink before putting yellow on, it makes it brighter, so putting brown before red should in theory make it pop and look a bit more red. Keeping it nice and thin, because it doesn't need to be super opaque, but we're going to go for this deep red colour. And we're just going to cover up all of that brown that we've just put down. Making sure not to miss any under his arms and, you know, all the good stuff. and trying to keep the model in focus. And this is what you're left with. So it's quite a nice red, but we need to get some extra depth in there because it's looking a little bit flat. There he goes. Before we do that, I was getting sick of seeing this red base, so I thought if I just slapped some black over it, it doesn't really matter, but it stops me being upset really. Look at me go. Graphite next, one of my favourites from the last video, and what we're going to do is just slap it on his face right there. Nice and watery so we don't obscure any details, but just slap it on. Yeah. And that goes for his hands as well, any exposed flesh. And that's going to be the base. There we go, look. It's looking alright. We're going to go back and do highlights now on his chest, just to make it stand out a little bit. All them little creases, you can see that. And once again, just going over it, giving him some depth there in the creases, in the recesses, and the buttons. And now going back with pure white, just to really make it pop. On this kind of scale, it's quite hard to make something like that pop, but we've got to do our best. Who loves blood red? Dracula loves blood red. He does, he does, he does. Well, that's a niche joke that only about 3 people will get. But yeah, we're going to go back and do all the little highlights there with blood red. Any bright red will do, but just hit the higher points. Oh God, what have I done? Don't do that. Or do that and trust the process. I don't know. But it looks too stark. So I'm going to go back and mix deep red and blood red. So that's the original colour and the highlight colour in about 50-50 quantity. And just go over where the two colours meet. So it gives it a bit of a softer blend. As you can see there, it's a lot less stark. And then I go back over everything with deep red, very, very, very watered down, just to tie the colours back together again. So we've got highlights in there, and we've got the mid-tone, so now let's do some recesses. You can see I've really aimed at the bottom of the cape to give it the depth, and then we're going to go back up to highlights. It's a lot of messing around with this cape, but it's the thing that people will see first because it's the bright colour, it's the one colour we're really going for. And finally we're going to hit it with this super bright red, just very, very sparingly on the highest points, and just, I can't stress enough, don't overdo it or else you end up back at, 3 stages ago. You don't want that. We're darkening down some of the darker points, and now we're going to brighten up some of the brighter points. I'm doing all this at once because it was quite a lot of messing around, but as you can see, his eyes are darker, his hair's darker, he's got some highlights on his arms and legs. I swear it's black, honest, it's black. But as you can see, look here where the jackets are, and it meets the trousers. Kind of like recess washing, but it was just a little bit less watery. One of my favourite blues. And we're just doing the iconic bit where the light hits his eyes. Talking about his eyes, do his pupils. Maybe don't make him look like he's looking at his nose, but we can fix that later. Yeah. Don't forget the back of his cape, because I totally forgot the back of his cape. Look, see, it's not too bad. Keep the middle bit dark because that's where he's pressing against, and put highlights on where the creases are highest. Yeah, just some little highlights on his hair. Ooh, spooky! Alright, and that's Dracula done. So I had a lot of fun with this model. It was a little bit different because the details are really quite shallow, especially like his medallion, the buttons, some of the creases, the hair. There is texture there, but if you put a couple of layers of paint on it, you are going to lose that. Surprisingly enough, there wasn't a great deal of cleanup work to be done. A little bit on the base, but for the most part, the actual sculpt was quite clean. I'd paint more of these, and I probably will. And so, with all that said, thank you for your time. I wish you a good day, and many more besides. Yours, Forever in Horror, 226.